In 1979, a Soviet scientist named Igor Gouzenko was walking through a narrow mountain valley in Siberia when his dog collapsed. Not from exhaustion, not from heat. The dog simply fell over, mid-step, as if the world had switched off. Gouzenko dragged it back uphill, away from the valley floor. The dog woke up. He walked it back down. It collapsed again. He stood there, at some invisible line on the ground, watching an animal die and revive, as if the valley had a switch. He wasn't the first person to find that switch. He was just one of the first to survive long enough to report it. There are many places on Earth where the air itself becomes a weapon, not metaphorically, not poetically, measurably, chemically, specifically. The air near the ground stops sustaining life and starts ending it. These places have names, they have GPS coordinates. Some of them are tourist attractions now, which tells you something interesting about how humans relate to the things that can kill them. The most famous one is in Indonesia. It's called Sinabung, or more specifically the valley that sits below the Dieng Plateau on Java. But the place that gets studied, feared, and quietly visited is called Kawah Ijen. And the thing about Kawah Ijen is that it looks like the most beautiful place on Earth. The crater lake is a surreal shade of turquoise. At night, the sulfuric gases that vent from vents in the rock catch fire and burn electric blue, a blue that looks computer-generated, that looks like someone cheated. Miners carry baskets of solid sulfur out of the crater before dawn every morning and have done so for decades. Their lungs are not okay. But the killing valleys, the ones Gouzenko's dog discovered, the ones the scientific literature quietly calls cold gas traps, they work differently. And what they do is arguably stranger because they're invisible. Here's the mechanism. Carbon dioxide is heavier than air. You probably learned that somewhere and forgot it, the way you forget things that don't seem immediately relevant to your survival. It is relevant to your survival. When CO2 seeps up from volcanic activity in the ground, which it does in hundreds of places, quietly, without any drama, it doesn't mix into the atmosphere and drift away. It ools. It sinks into low places the way water does. And it sits there, clear and odorless and completely indistinguishable from breathable air, slowly displacing the oxygen that life runs on. Animals walk into the pool, birds fly low across it, and they simply stop. The most documented example is a place in Cameroon called Lake Nyos. In 1986, something triggered a massive release of CO2 that had been accumulating at the bottom of the lake under enormous pressure. The release was sudden, a limnic eruption, which is the technical phrase for when a lake literally burps a cloud of gas. In this case, the cloud was almost entirely carbon dioxide. It rolled down the hillsides at speed, staying low, pouring into valleys and villages the way a fog moves in. Within minutes, roughly 1,700 people were dead. About 3,500 livestock. Trees were untouched. Buildings were untouched. The village of Nyos looked from a distance completely normal. But everyone inside had simply stopped. The survivors described losing consciousness so fast they couldn't react. Some woke up hours later surrounded by the bodies of people who had been sitting next to them. One man woke up, walked outside, and found his entire community silent. He assumed the world had ended. He wasn't entirely wrong about what had happened, just about the scale. The reason CO2 does this is simple and a little horrifying once you understand it. When you breathe, the signal that tells your brain to inhale isn't actually the absence of oxygen. It's the presence of CO2 in your blood. Your body is built to detect rising CO2 and respond. That's the trigger. But when you walk into a pocket of concentrated CO2 in the environment, the signal fires wrong. The CO2 floods in, your body reads it as a crisis, and it responds by, essentially, going into an emergency shutdown. You lose consciousness before your brain can form a plan. There's no warning, there's no smell, there's no chance to think something seems off here. Which brings us back to the killing fields. There's a place in Italy, the Grotto del Cane, the Cave of the Dog, that has been known as a curiosity since the 17th century. It sits near Naples, near the volcanic landscape of the Phlegraean Fields, and it does exactly what Gouzenko's Siberian Valley did. Carbon dioxide pools at the floor of the cave to a depth of about half a meter. A human standing upright breathes normally. A dog, its nose closer to the ground, collapses. For centuries, people brought dogs to the grotto as a demonstration. They'd pull the dog out, it would recover, they'd put it back in. Tourists paid to watch. This happened repeatedly, for entertainment, for roughly 200 years. The dogs were fine eventually, mostly. The grotto still exists. The reason these places haven't all been fenced off and forgotten is that they're geological features, not disasters. The Phlegraean Fields are active volcanic terrain. The entire landscape breathes CO2 on a slow geological schedule. Kawah Ijen is a working mine because the volcanic activity that makes the lake deadly also produces the sulfur those miners extract. Lake Nyos has now had a degassing pipe installed in it, a long tube that reaches to the bottom and allows the CO2 to escape slowly and safely, instead of building up to a catastrophic release. Engineers essentially installed a valve in a lake. That works, by the way. It's a genuine solution. The lake that killed 1,700 people now has a steel pipe sticking out of it, and gas bubbles up steadily, harmlessly, and the pressure is managed. The science of the thing caught up to the horror of the thing. But here's what stays with you. The CO2 is still being produced. The volcanic system underneath Lake Nyos is still running. The pipe doesn't stop the source, it just manages the accumulation. Take the pipe away, and in some number of decades, the pressure would build again. The lake would be primed again. The mechanism never actually stopped, it just has a handler now. And there are lakes like Nyos that don't have handlers. Lake Kivu on the border of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda sits over a similar geological feature and holds dissolved CO2 and methane at its depths. It is roughly 2,000 times larger than Lake Nyos by volume. About 2 million people live along its shores. The models for the Kivu-scale limnic eruption are not reassuring. The gas is slowly being extracted for energy. It's a real program, a practical effort, and it generates electricity for the region, which is its own kind of strange. A lake that could kill millions being slowly emptied of its own deadliness and converted into power. You wonder what Gouzenko thought, standing at that invisible line on the valley floor in Siberia, his dog going down, the world looking completely normal, no sign of anything wrong, just a place where the gradient of breathable air changed by a meter and became a death sentence. We mapped the visible world a long time ago. We know where every mountain is, every river, but there are pockets in that world, real places with coordinates, where the rules go slightly sideways, where you could walk into what looks like an ordinary field and simply not walk out. Not because something attacked you, not because you did anything wrong, just because the air down there stopped being air, quietly, a long time ago, and no one put up a sign. Some of those places have signs now, some of them don't, and you'd never know the difference until you were already in one.